Everything at church is important, right? Everything merits improvement, right? But if I had to narrow it down to the top 3 areas where I could improve ministry, what would those 3 areas be? Well, in today's Church Tips podcast, we're going to talk about exactly that. Here we go.
A few years back, I was working at the church, and we were looking at some of the systems that we had in place as it related to getting people to go from volunteer or to wanting to volunteer into actually volunteering. Right. And this is an issue I've seen actually in a number of churches, and you as a listener may have this happening in your church right now. Here's what happened. We had the kids team was trying to recruit a specific individual to join the kids team. Yep. One of the worship leaders was also trying to recruit that same person to join the worship team. Yep. And then we had a small group team trying to recruit that same person to start a small group. So all of a sudden we had 3 different ministry departments all recruiting the same person.
A pretty popular person.
Well, this person was. Yeah, this person must have been a gem.
That's right.
But what they were, the person said, hey, you guys figure out where you want me, and I'll do it. I'm happy to help. Just tell me where. And what I don't think the team realized was we have to look at the ministry. We have to look at the recruitment of the ministry teams from the lens of the person being recruited. They look at the church as a whole, as a unit.
Right.
They don't look at it as all these different departments.
Right.
And so we had to basically revamp the process to make sure that the right hand knew what the left hand was doing. And it was a good learning experience, a growing experience.
And a great improvement.
It was a great improvement.
Yeah.
And that's why I mentioned that is because we want to talk today about the top 3 ministry areas to improve. Yeah. And so we have to constantly work to improve the areas of ministry. And so we're going to be diving right into that today.
Good.
So, Dick, why don't you jump in? What's the first thing you want to talk about?
Okay. Well, the first one, I think a pastor and a church need to give strong consideration to is improving the preaching. Now, immediately when I say that, all insecurities of every pastor and preacher that go, oh man, I'm not as good as the guy down the street and blah blah. No, that's not where I'm at. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about wherever you're at. You could be a rookie, just learning to preach. You could be a 40-year veteran and you've preached a zillion sermons. Yeah. The whole point is you've got to work to continue to improve your preaching because that is the piece that will hold people once they come. There's lots of attractive things, kids ministry and so on, that people are drawn to. But what's going to hold them is what happens in the auditorium. Yep. And the preaching, it doesn't have to be, the biggest and best and the best preacher in the nation, but it does need to be there. The people need to have a sense that pastor is delivering and is well prepared and is getting better and better and better at their preaching.
Yeah, you have a lot of people a lot of the stats out there talk about how a visitor will return, they make their decision in the first 7 minutes or whatever. Well, there could be some truth to that. I don't deny that. But I believe that what's going to get people to stick is what you're talking about. Yeah. It's the preaching. You can have a good hospitality experience and all that. But if the preaching,
and we advocate for those things.
Yeah. But if the preaching is subpar, people aren't
eventually.
They're not going to stick for the long haul. Yeah. It reminds me of 2 different lead pastors who are friends of mine. What they do to improve their preaching. I have one pastor. I actually mentioned this a few episodes ago. He will practice his sermon on the Saturday night, every Saturday night before Sunday morning. Yeah. He literally goes up into the church building, gets on stage, turns the lights off by himself, and he does the entire sermon. Yeah. He practices it on stage, live. In what would be the live setting beforehand. Yeah. The other pastor friend of mine, he every sermon he does, afterward, he watches it. Oh, yeah. And so he's self-critiquing. He's looking at it. Okay, I could have done that illustration better. Or, I see how I missed this. Or, these things to improve his communication skills. Yeah. Because while we know the Bible speaks for itself, God uses humans to communicate the word. And so we need to make sure we do as best as we can in communicating. Well, so I know I'm stealing your thunder.
No, that's fine. But honestly, when I'm talking to pastors and they're saying, okay, how can I do this? One of the things I recommend they do, those are great suggestions, but I recommend that they begin to follow 2 preaching pastors that they connect with.
Yeah. And listen to them.
Listen to them, watch them. And it doesn't mean you've got to be them.
Yeah.
But if you're tracking with them, maybe they're an expository preacher, you're trying to be a better expository preacher, watch them. And you'll be amazed at what happens. You'll get better. Everybody learns from everybody else.
That's
Work on that. I will mention, too, here, we had just released here a couple of weeks ago the preaching track inside of Church University. So go to churchuniversity.com, and you can click on the preaching track and certainly avail yourself of that resource, because it's a phenomenal resource that will really help you get better. I mean, it's comprehensive. It's the whole deal.
Well, and just if you haven't heard much about it, it's a full course basically on preaching, from start to finish, how to improve, and it's great not only for lead pastors, but it works for children's pastors, youth pastors.
Yeah, so your whole team can use it. I will mention, too, in episode 48, you might go take a look at that. The preaching was the very first thing. There were 3 things we talked about there in terms of traits of growing churches. And you want your church to grow. You might take a look at episode 48 as well.
That's good. All right, what's the second thing?
Another thing that really needs to be continually worked on to improve is your youth and children's ministry.
Okay.
Now, youth and children's ministry can be seen, where we talked about preaching being that thing that causes people to stick. Youth and children's ministry are frequently the upfront thing. Hey, they got a hot youth group over there. Hey, man, the kids ministry over at this church. So from that standpoint, now you're on the front end of a guest coming. You want to be continually evaluating your systems and processes for your youth and children's ministry. I found it interesting in your earlier story. You talked about how the kids ministry was recruiting this person. Okay, kids ministry, recruiting all the time.
Yep.
So when you think of kids and youth in terms of bringing on leaders, teachers, workers with the kids and youth, you want to be continually refining those processes, because the better the team you build, the better the ministry is going to go forward.
Yeah.
And then the content of what you do. I've seen I've seen it 2 ways. I've seen it in youth where people view youth as entertainment time. And I get it, the teenagers, they're having fun and so on.
Yeah.
But then I've also heard it, sadly, on kids ministry, that kids ministry, while they won't call it babysitting, they don't really teach much of the Bible. Listen, you can't afford to have that be the case. You have to be continually improving, evaluating what you're doing in terms of your curriculum. What do you want that 5th grader, that 5-year-old to know by the time they're 8, by the time they're 11, then they go into youth? What do you want them to know by the time they graduate from high school? Anyway, I can kind of get worked up on this, but ministry to youth and children is key to improvement all the time.
It's probably because you have grandkids.
Probably, and I love those grandkids, and I want to see them know Jesus and grow in their faith. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, the third area to improve is systems. Now, when I talk about systems, maybe a simplified way to define a system is it's just a process.
Yeah.
It's how do we do something?
Yeah.
And so whether it's what you're talking about with kids and youth ministry, here would be a system tied to that would be what is our process to take someone from when they're leaving elementary and entering into the junior high stage.
Yeah.
How can we make that as smooth as possible and not have kids fall through the cracks?
Right.
And then the same would be true once they leave high school. How do we get them to enter into the college age, the young adult ministry?
Yeah.
So, but there's all kinds of systems. I mean, it could be small groups. It could be your process for recruitment, like I talked about in the story.
Yeah.
How can we improve our volunteer process? That's one of the things we did from the story I was talking about, where we said, okay, hey, we need to have a streamlined approach where everyone knows who's kind of on the recruitment list, so to speak.
Yeah.
So we're not all talking to the same person, and just we see the new person who's now part of the church, and they're like,
and everybody pounces,
because they're solid and they've got ministry history or whatever. So we're like, oh yeah, we got to get them, and so let's make this a streamlined approach. So could be discipleship. You go down the list. We have processes, or we should have processes for everything we do.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if you don't have that figured out, that's a first step. It's probably identifying, what is the process for our church to disciple people? What is the process to take them from 5-year-old to 5th grade and grow them? And once you get all that laid out, then you start working to figure out, okay, how can we improve that? We have to constantly work to improve these systems.
Yeah.
So with that being the case, Dick, give us the quick recap.
It's very simple. The recap is that we encourage you to improve the preaching, improve the ministry to youth and children, and improve systems.
Yeah.
If you'll do these three things and be diligent about paying attention to these, you're going to see good things happen in the church and improvements going to happen. I want to mention to you that just a few months ago, Jonathan created an outstanding masterclass called the 4 Secrets Masterclass that a number of pastors have taken advantage of. And while you're in the mode of thinking, okay, I want to improve the ministry, you need to improve as well. And this is a course just shy of an hour in length that really walks you through some outstanding leadership concepts in the church that are going to help you be a better leader and help the church. Just go to Leaders.Church/secrets. That's Leaders.Church/secrets. And you can jump into the masterclass right away. I think they have some options on times and dates that they can jump into.
Yeah, well, right now you actually can just get access to the latest replay.
Oh, you get into it right away. Yeah. Okay, so that's good. Yeah. Also, we'd certainly encourage you to subscribe to the podcast platform that you like to listen to, and certainly to our YouTube channel. When you're on the podcast, we certainly would encourage you to rate and review us. In fact, we've got a review here from Adam and Olivia. Brilliant. Another gem from Leaders.Church. This is some solid and practical info. Thank you, Adam and Olivia, for that kind comment. And you rate and review us. Who knows? We may read yours on a future upcoming podcast. Anything else, Jonathan?
That's it.
Okay. Thanks very much for hanging with us. Make it a great one and be blessed.
Hey, Jonathan here. Real quick before you go. Everything in your ministry rises and falls on your leadership. So investing in your leadership is essential to staying healthy and growing the ministry. And that's why I want to invite you to join us inside the Leaders.Church membership. This online streaming service for pastors gives you access to more than 300 videos plus training material to level up your leadership and improve your ministry skills. If you'd like to do that, I want to invite you to go to Leaders.Church/boost. Again, that's Leaders.Church/boost. Well, thanks again for joining us on the Church Tips Podcast. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.